I have so much to say.
Yeah, so a little bit of context for this. I really like David Cronenberg. I actually still have a decent amount of his filmography that I need to watch, but every time I watch a David Cronenberg, I typically love it, even though his movies aren't necessarily ones that I revisit over and over. I've never seen the first Crimes of the Future, but what little I know about it, it has nothing to do with this movie.
The old Crimes of the Future, you don't know what you know what it's about generally.
Well, I've never seen it, but what I know about it, and this could be somewhat wrong or boiled down, is it's basically like beauty products create like a cancer virus or something.
What's the when did it come out ish?
It might be his first movie.
Okay.
1970-ish.
So 70s.
Like
okay.
Early 70s.
Well, that puts it in a context as far as why he would decide to remake his own movie.
So what did you think of Crimes of the Future 2022, starring Aragorn and James Bond's ex-wife?
Aragorn, James Bond's ex-wife.
Future ex-wife.
Bella Swan.
Oh, yeah. Actually, so I'll just throw one thing out there. I would say Kristen Stewart actually gave the performance of the movie.
She certainly was.
She plays to her crazy strengths.
Yeah.
In that she's
kind of the worst parts
of creepy weirdo. She comes off like a creepy weirdo, but in this movie she's supposed to, so it kind of works out really well.
Yeah, it's kind of like this role really does highlight all of the worst facets of her acting ability. In that she's kind of mousy and she talks too fast and is very awkward.
There's a role for every actor.
Certainly.
I don't like Kristen Stewart. This is a role for her, though. I think Lea Seydoux was amazing also.
She's amazing in everything.
But that's just it. I mean, she gave a very consistent quality performance. Viggo Mortenson was fine. He didn't necessarily blow me away. But he's also playing like a very kind of stoic character, which is kind of a recipe for an underwhelming performance a lot of times.
Yeah, he was kind of more the subject of, like in every way, of this movie. He was like the prop.
Yeah, actually, that's a good way to put it. He wasn't even really an actor in this. He was a prop for the rest of the characters.
Yeah.
And sort of the centerpiece of the movie, but almost not even a character. That's actually a really good point.
He served every character in a different way, but in every way he was the subject, just a thing for them to use. Is the whole film a metaphor for going 100% plant-based vegan?
Oh, is that what this is about?
That is where I decided this movie is trying to lead us.
But they wanted him to eat plastic.
Which is possibly the next step after being plant-based vegan, right?
Is eating toxic waste.
Because that is what truly will save this world, is if humans could consume the thing that they have poisoned this earth with. But that is what I think we were. That is definitely where
the movie goes. It's interesting because I didn't really. I mean, I mentally acknowledged what was going on there and the idea of the eating toxic waste thing. To me, that wasn't the central subject of the movie. It was more about what happens to people when their pain centers no longer function. And so the answer is they become sadistic weirdos. And I thought it was more a study in the value of pain and humanism in a post-humanist civilization.
I would say that's definitely where it started, and I think that's also probably I think that's what it is about, kind of on the surface. But I just decided to really entertain myself by diving into what I thought the metaphor of the whole thing was.
And see,
that's how I got to where I was.
And see, it's interesting because I'm exactly the opposite. I felt like the vegan stuff was surface, and the meat of the movie was the other thing of it. So that's just kind of an interesting note, I guess.
Yeah.
So does this movie work? Is this movie good? Is this movie bad?
It was better than I expected. expected.
So you had heard, I assume, bad things because you warned me when we were going in, or
I
what?
didn't hear a lot. You know, you said, I think, something correct in that David Cronenberg movies aren't for everyone, so it doesn't really matter what people said. But one thing that I did hear was that at the Cannes Film Festival, like half the audience walked out. And so for the first, like,
Because of how graphic it was?
So for the first, like, probably hour of the movie, I was like, is that what did it? Like, every time something would happen, I would be like, is this the moment? You know, is this what made people get up and leave? Or did they make it this far? And then something else would happen, and I'd be like, oh, that has to be it.
The visual graphicness of it, I would say, was significantly less than it could have been, and maybe that I expected.
That I would agree with, too. I expected it to be a lot grosser.
Yeah, it's actually, especially if you don't watch movies like this, it's very gross, but, like, if you're accustomed to this type of a movie, it's actually pretty tame. It's coming from someone who just gave away a copy of Society on my YouTube channel.
That movie was grosser.
That movie is grosser than this movie, but what this movie has is a psychological underpinning that makes it significantly more disturbing even when they're not showing stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like, it's the implication of what they're doing more so than what they're doing.
Yeah.
And the, you know, connecting sex and pain thing, which I think David Cronenberg loves to do. He's done it many times.
He obviously has a kink.
Yeah.
He's not hiding
totally
from the world.
Yeah, totally on display here. You know, it makes it very unnerving. And so it's not necessarily the fact that there's blood spurts everywhere. It's how people engage with violent behavior is what's disturbing about the movie.
Right.
And so I would say the movie overall is very effective at conveying that.
Yeah.
So I guess in that sense, the movie's a winner. I think the movie gets a little clunky in terms of setting up the world that they're in. There's a lot of, like, characters talking to each other, explaining the universe and the situation of society to the audience, even though these two characters have no real reason to get into it because they both would know. You know, so it's a little clunky. There aren't compelling characters in this, but they're not supposed to be compelling characters in this. It's more an examination of a society.
I didn't care what happened to any of them at all.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Which, you know, could be the sign of a bad movie, but it depends on what the movie's trying to do, and you kind of have to take it on its terms. And, you know, the movie that's not what the movie is attempting to do. So, in this case, it gets a pass. But that's where it comes into, like, of course the reviews for this movie would be bad, because, you know, that's an element that a normal movie-going audience is going to want to have. Like, they're going to want to have characters to care about.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a very slim group of movies in which it's acceptable to not have that in an intentional, intelligent way. And I think this movie does that. It fits the criteria
I think it definitely,
to be successful despite that.
It definitely is for a specific audience.
Is this like David Cronenberg's Imaginarium of Dr. Parnassus?
Maybe.
Because, like,
A little bit.
that movie is like, I love Terry Gilliam, and I actually like that movie, but it's just sort of like Terry Gilliam's greatest hits in one movie. And this kind of has that vibe where I don't know that David Cronenberg necessarily has something completely revolutionary and new to say, but he's revisiting sort of a combination of his best ideas kind of in one place.
I think so. And you do get, like, all of your favorite things. You get, like, weird props. You get gross body horror. You get a society that doesn't exist but is familiar to you still. You know, like, all of those people exist in today's society. They just are obsessed with a different kind of art or a different kind of thing,
it's a perversion of things you know.
Yeah.
But it's still things you know.
It's vaguely familiar.
Yeah.
All of it. So.
I actually really quick wanted to touch on, like, the production design of the movie, since you brought up, like, the look of it. It was very simple. And I actually thought that was really... I really liked it. Like, this is a movie clearly made with not a lot of money. It's very minimalist, like just like 5 buildings that are like blown out, and that's kind of the whole movie. And then there's like 3 props that are like very intricate and stand out in how convoluted and complex they are, when everything else is just sort of like an old bomb shelter. I actually found myself really enjoying the simplicity of it. It reminded me of Turbo Kid.
Yeah, I was,
where it's like the whole movie's like in
I forgot about Turbo
the
Kid.
whole movie's in like a quarry or whatever, and
Yeah.
you know, just kid running around on his bike, and you don't really actually need anything else, and it kind of works. And I felt like this movie, the minimalism of the production design works.
You know, I didn't even question it, actually.
It's empty though. Like you watch the movie, it's like, gosh, there's like nothing.
There's no furniture, and even at the end, well, there is furniture.
There's
but
empty rooms.
It's all this life. What was it called? Life
I can't
force?
remember, but that's the thing. It's like there's 3 of those props.
Yeah.
And they put them, the same 3 props, in like 3 different sets, but all the sets are like as empty as an Ed Wood set.
Yeah.
You know, it's literally just like some brick walls with graffiti on it, and that's kind of, there's nothing there.
People are standing. You see Lea Seydoux's sleeping quarters, which is literally just a stone bench on the wall.
The one time you see her sitting down, she's just sitting on the kitchen counter eating.
Yep. There is no pain. So
They have no creature needs.
They have no need for comfort.
If you like David Cronenberg, watch it. If you already know you don't like David Cronenberg, don't watch it.
You will not like it.
You're not gonna like it.
This is not the one.
And if you've never seen a David Cronenberg movie, then probably just start with The Fly.
Yeah.
Because that's his most accessible and also a great example of just how nuts his movies are on top of it. It sort of works in both worlds.
I would say start with Scanners.
Scanners is great, but I mean, but if you're gonna show someone David Cronenberg for the first time that doesn't watch those types of movies, I think The Fly is a good, like, if you can handle The Fly, you can go deeper.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's commercial enough that there's actually a chance that they'll handle it, because that movie was a pretty big hit, so
yeah.
it is commercial despite how Cronenberg that movie is.
And it's Jeff Goldblum, so who doesn't love Jeff Goldblum in this day and age?
You know.
Sean doesn't love Jeff Goldblum.
I love Jeff Goldblum. I just know we have another Jeff Goldblum movie coming up soon.
We do, unfortunately, which I can't wait to talk about.